Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Apex. My name is Paul. Hope everybody's having a great week, had a great race weekend. I am joined here by my co host, Meredith. Meredith, how are you today?
I'm fantastic. I had a glorious weekend. It was a great weekend for McLarens and Ferraris, so nothing could bring me down this week.
I can't wait to get into it. Josh, how are you today?
Doing very good. Had a great weekend as well. Really was hyped up after getting to watch the Formula One movie and then getting to watch the Grand Prix after. So I was just riding on as the high, I guess, that Brad Pitt gave me. So it was a good weekend.
It
And
was
you're rocking
definitely,
your new hoodie.
I am got the 24-hour Le Mans hoodie. I'm addicted. I told
look
you
at that,
we're all in now.
looking good.
Yeah.
You look good in it. Yeah, it
Hmm.
was definitely a fun weekend. But before that, I just do want to apologize. I had some emergencies I had to take care of on Sunday, which is why we were not able to record. So please, everyone, forgive me and bear with us. And we're going to produce a great episode today.
I'm
So,
just mostly excited we have all three of us back. It feels like
Hmm.
because we had the break and Josh, you weren't on the last one, it feels nice to have us like all the gangs back together.
absolutely, we're
Yep.
here. And also, stick around to the end of the episode. The three of us have a very special announcement. You do not want to miss this one. But let's kind of get into this weekend. I figure it's been a few days. People that have already wanted to watch it have already seen it. Let's talk about the F1 movie. Meredith, we'll start with you. What did you think?
Overall, I really liked it. I mean, I think going into it, I knew it was gonna be a drama, right? And like I know especially like being a female fan, a lot of people had opinions about like of course the female lead, is gonna like fall in love with Brad Pitt, but like I think it's important to remember that like it's a drama. And Joe was dying laughing at the crash when the car's like woo, and like spins like Joe said, it spun like a tight football pass. And he was like, it was so over dramatized, it's crazy. Like, he didn't
But
realize
that
that
actually
was
happened.
actually based off that crash, that
Yeah,
F2 crash
Yeah.
in Monza, which, like, we will talk about F2 crashes because they've been aplenty. But
absolutely.
overall, I really liked it. The part where I actually lost it after was like right at the tail end. Spoilers, spoiler alert! If you haven't seen it, skip this part. At the end, after they win that race, and Toto comes up to JP and he says, like JP, anytime you want another team to race for, like I'd be happy to have you. And he says, "Thank you, Toto." And I'm like, why'd you say it? Why'd you say it like that? Why'd you say it toe? Like Joe and I literally picked our feet up and like touched our toes. I was like dying at the way he said it. But overall, I would give it an 8 out of 10. Always room for improvement. I knew it was going to be a drama. I thought the cinematography was amazing. The racing scenes were great. I really liked both storylines being played out. I really liked getting to see Sunny's storyline and I really liked getting to see JP's storyline. So, yeah, I think they teed it up for a sequel. And I did notice the F1 Miami account was posting this last weekend. The F1 Miami account said Sunny Hayes won the 2025 Austrian Grand Prix. Now, why would the
Hmm.
F1 Miami official account be posting that if the movie's already released and if there's not a sequel teed up. So that's my
I
thought.
did see there's been some rumors around the internet today that Apple TV is looking to make a sequel to that movie, so it'll be interesting. See what happens. But Josh, what did you think? You and I went to go see it
Yeah,
opening
y'all went on a
night.
cute little date.
We did. We went to
We sure
dinner,
did.
got all fancied up, and then we went to the movie. What'd you think?
I really, really liked it. I expected the drama, of course. I mean, I think that with the idea of the movie, I believe was to try to bring in a wider audience and to not just appeal to just the motorsports fans and people who are already watching Formula One. Of course, those people are going to show up to watch a movie, but we've already seen some numbers from that first weekend at the box office, and they crushed it.
Crushed
And
it.
Yeah, they
that
totally.
really shows that they hit the mark on making sure that this movie was marketable to a very broad audience. So I'm going to start off by saying I do appreciate that there has to be some nuance, and it can't be a documentary style that strict on the technical stuff because people just wouldn't watch it, right? You couldn't throw up an entire full length Grand Prix and just expect everybody to be able to watch it and enjoy it the same way that we would. So that out of the way, I thought the cinematography unbelievable, and I expected that. I saw how much care that they put into filming during the race weekends and how they've had the cameras set up on the cars and kind of all the little spoilers that came out ahead of time talking about just like how intricate all the filming work was. So I expected it to be so cool, and it definitely lived it up to the hype, I thought. It was just as neat to me as the Top Gun movies with all the filming inside the cockpit. The racing sequences were great. I thought the cinematography, the camera work was really good, and I really appreciate as well just the way that the cars sounded in the theater. I love the way that they just sounded like just the whole place was full of just F1 car noise, and it was great. I really appreciated how lifelike they could get it to sound inside of the theater. Of course, like anything else, there's some things I thought were cheesy, and that was to be expected. Some of the storyline stuff was just like, okay, come on, all right, we get it. I will say my biggest complaint about the movie was, and so this is something that we've touched on the podcast at length that's at some points in time, we've talked quite a bit about safety, right? About how safe these cars are, how far we've come in the last 20 years, 30 years from having multiple drivers a year die in Grand Prix to now where, a serious injury is extremely rare. So what I did not like about the movie was the fact that we had two separate crashes with two separate drivers that landed them in the hospital, right? I get it from the drama standpoint, but I don't necessarily think you needed to have why does Brad Pitt need to wreck at Vegas, I believe, where he's just driving mad? Why does he have to wreck and then go to the hospital? Like, why is that integral to the story, right? I just didn't quite think that was necessary. I thought that makes it maybe look a little bit more dangerous than the sport actually is. And I think that if that was what they were going for, was to add a level of danger, they could have done that very easily just through the driving, through some risky overtakes and some more, wheel-to-wheel combat kind of stuff, So I just didn't appreciate necessarily like how unsafe they made the sport look, when I feel like that's something that the sport has tried extremely hard to, really take to heart and to make sure that drivers are safe. So that's my thoughts. I really liked it all in all.
Yeah.
So on a scale of 1 to 10, what do you give it?
Yeah, what do you get it?
I'll give it an 8. I like an 8.
Okay. Meredith, what were you going to say?
I was just going to say, I think the only reason that I was like, okay, I'll give that Brad Pitt one in Vegas a pass was because how else were they going to reveal to Javier Bardem's character that accident that he got in all those years before was that severe, and that his injury was so severe with all the spinal injuries? Like, how else was Javier going to figure out the scale of that injury if he wasn't going to land in a hospital with a medical chart right there? Because when he picks it up and he starts reading it, I was like, oh my gosh, those are his injuries now. And then when Javier Bardem's character was like, this is from 30 years ago. Like, how else would they have done that reveal? That was my only reason that I was like, okay, because I was kind of in the same spot where I was like judging that a little bit. I'm like, okay, that crash, he would have gone to medical to get checked out and, gotten reviewed, but he wouldn't have necessarily gone to the hospital maybe. But then when he started reading the chart, I was like, oh my gosh, I guess maybe it was way worse. And then I was like, oh, and there it is. That's why the writers did it. So I had the same thought, Josh. And then when he was reading the chart, I was like, okay, that they did it for the plot.
Yeah. Overall, it was a good movie. My thoughts are, I don't know what I was expecting going into it, but there's a small part of me that walked out a little bit disappointed. I think if you look at this movie from two different lenses, you get two different experiences. I think for us and anyone who watches Formula One and knows for the most part, the intricacies of it, I feel like you left a little bit disappointed because it seemed like it was more Hollywood than anything. But if you're looking at it from the casual viewer and somebody trying to get into the sport, I think they did a great job. I was shocked to see how full the movie theater was. I thought it was an F1 movie. I was like, dude, it's not going to be that full. But, I mean, I'm sure Brad Pitt has something to do with it. But I was genuinely surprised how many people, and then people that showed up with F1 gear. I saw a couple people in Mercedes shirts and hats. There's a lot more F1 fans out there than we think. But it seemed, I don't know if cheesy is the word I want to use. I feel like it missed the mark for me. I'd give it a 7 out of 10. And then I was hoping...
I was going to say, I know you would text on the thread about, you expected to see more interaction with the other drivers. So, tell us more about, that.
And I understand why they didn't, because the way the movie was portrayed or the way they put it out to fans was, hey, we're just being incorporated into these weekends. We're trying to stay away from it as possible. But it really seemed like it was a plug and play. There was no interaction between the people that were there and the actors. And I would have liked to have seen that more. Even the interview with Zach Brown, Fred, and the other team principal.
We
That
don't.
seemed it was just like they say one word and then it seemed like it was very plug and play. It just left me something to be desired because we see this every weekend. The drivers are talking, they'll have a little bit conversation, and it just seemed like it was 10 teams, 20 drivers, and then the two on side.
I
And it
think
just
that they
there was seemed
missed
like
an
there was no
opportunity with like the
cohesion.
paddock tour, you know, or they do like not the paddock tour, the drivers parade. Drivers parade would have been the easiest spot to me to get that interaction with those other drivers. It would have been realistic, you know. They take the paddy wagon around, right? Like every track does something for the drivers parade. Like that would have been a really easy opportunity to throw Sonny Hayes and JP in there interacting with the other drivers to give it a more realistic feel, but not be intrusive of the driver's preparation or seriousness for the racing of the weekend.
Yeah, so it just,
I
like I
think
said, I give it a 7 out of 10. It left me something to be desired. And give me a second, Josh. I didn't like the fact that in a world, in the last couple years, we've talked about women in motorsports so much that the two women that were not focused in a good light. And I think we know, I don't know if you guys noticed it on Sunday. Bernie Collins did a great job of walking through that grid
Queen.
and talking to women and showing us that women are more than just sex appeal and stuff. And if you want to have sex appeal in a movie, great. I'm all for it. I'm a male. I'm here for it. But why is it that the one mechanic who's an idiot is a woman, and the other woman who's a freaking genius ends up just falling in love
Right.
for Brad Pitt? I think in a world where we're trying to put women in a higher echelon when it comes to motorsports, this movie did a job of just demeaning them. And
Yeah,
it
I
was just
think
like
again it's
if you want Brad Pitt to have a love interest, do it. But don't make it be the lead engineer and the mechanic who's an idiot. To me, that just was like a hit and miss.
yeah, what's unfortunate for me is that like I knew it was coming and I anticipated it and I just told myself to go into the theater and experience it like I was just going to enjoy a movie,
Yeah.
not from like a sport expert, you know, or you know what I deem to be like a knowledgeable person. And I think it does suck. Like, yeah, there are a lot of really talented women in motorsports, not, you know, in the engineering side. On the, you know, I hated that her story, the arc of like the pit crew girl was I screwed up to now I'm a queen and badass pit crew girl that can like help everybody and set an example. And like by the end of it, you know, she's like calling them and she's like ready. I hated both of those being the way that women were portrayed, but I also don't know that they would have done, I don't know how they would have done anything different to not reinforce that issue without just like absolutely leaving out those storylines. Like it bums me out that I have to deal with that reality in there, and
But
it's like, and then like the whole Simone and her entire storyline being cut. Literally, she did all the PR for this movie. She filmed this movie, and they
yeah.
cut her entire character and show her in the background of one scene. It's like stuff like that. That it's like again, my reality is that I have to take things with a grain of salt. Being a woman in motorsport like fan, and so I was disappointed as well in that. I just tried to enjoy it for what it was and know that those actresses worked their fucking asses off and they're really proud of the work that they did. And rather than me looking at it from a deficit mindset of like what they didn't do, what I do know is that they had people consulting. I know Ruth was a really big part in consulting with that lead woman character and the lead engineer role. I mean, she served as an engineer, and like Ruth is an incredible leader as a woman in motorsports in this space. So I just am trying to come at it from like the positive of it, of those actresses working really hard to learn this sport, the women who collaborated to make this as realistic as possible, and just and hope for growth and like focus on the positive contributions that were made.
But
It
even if
definitely
you take those two, hang on. Sorry, Josh. Go ahead.
it definitely seemed like they cut a lot of the maybe the story arc or the character development of the pit group, the pit girl, the
Agreed.
mechanic. Because it seemed like you said it was like a weird like, oh, she messed up one time and then all of a sudden now she's like a rock star. So I feel like maybe there was supposed to be more there, and they cut out several scenes, maybe showing her development and growth, that might have kind of tied that back together. But that whole storyline just seemed really empty for really no reason. They could have
Yeah.
completely cut that out and left in some other racing shots or anything else if they weren't going to develop that in the right way. I just feel like it was kind of empty and didn't make a whole lot of sense with
And I
what
think
else was going on.
piggybacking off what Josh had to say, even if you took those two storylines out, it doesn't take away from the movie. I think the movie was still a good movie, and I don't think those two storylines added anything, but if you took them away, you don't miss anything,
Yeah.
if that remotely makes any sense.
Yeah, maybe the lesson for them to learn is like if they are filming a sequel, which it seems like it is, like why was Brad Pitt filming with McLaren at Coda? Like why is F1 Miami posting Sunny Hayes won the 2025 Austrian Grand Prix? Like it seems like they're filming a sequel. It seems like they're just kind of like teasing at it. So maybe the lesson they could learn is like there are other stories to be told by women in motorsports, and like let's make sure that we're capturing a realistic picture and not always just the love interest, not the person who screws up and then has a glow up story and is all of a sudden a professional. Like we didn't do that with any of the male mechanics, like at one point I was genuinely concerned, like right when it happened and she had that first mistake and JP came into the garage and was like yelling and was mad and slamming his helmet down and stuff. I was like, oh my God, don't you dare tell me that this is about to be a love story arc too, where she's going to get better and JP's going to fall in love. I swear I will lose
It
it.
kind of seemed like that was
Yeah.
kind of maybe where it was headed.
I was like, no, don't you do it. Don't you do it. So I was glad they didn't. But maybe they will listen to the feedback and realize, I know they have Ruth consulting on it. I would love to see Bernie be more involved, but also just like all the different women that are like, do a panel. Do a panel of women that actually work in motorsport. Like, we've got the Haas female engineer. I think her name is Laurel, that is Esteban Ocon's, person. Like, there are women that actually work in this sport. Do a panel, listen to their feedback, and not just fans' feedback, but like the actual people that are doing that work. Let them watch the movie, do a panel, get their feedback, and take that into account, and then blend that in with some other story writing to be able to accurately capture the way that women are represented in this sport.
The other thing to me that was shocking was, excuse me, they as the movie was being filmed and produced, the big thing was Lewis Hamilton is very involved in the film and how much he's been instrumental. For a man that is so instrumental in helping make the movie, he also he's so big in F1 Academy and how big of a pony he is for women that he would allow those two storylines to happen. To me, or maybe it wasn't ultimately his decision, but um, it just doesn't seem those two things correlate with me really well in my brain.
That's a good point. I hadn't even thought of that. I was
Because
just like, yeah.
every time he's got a free second, he's in the grid at F1 Academy, and he's around all these women, and he's a champion of women in motorsports. Yet he put his name and signed off on a project that those two storylines were in it. To me, that was a big disconnect. But maybe it's because I'm looking at it through the lens of a motorsport fan, and if you're looking at it from just a Hollywood entertainment lens, it hits every mark. So I don't know. It's much like if Josh and I watch a fireman film, we're going to pick it apart and
Yeah.
realize, oh, well, that's not right. So it is
I
what it
thought
is.
about
So,
texting y'all because I started a fire show on Apple called Smoke with Taryn Egerton. And I was like,
oh,
I thought about texting y'all being like, is this legit? Like, is this what it's really like?
Probably not.
you want one that Mark, for the most part, hits the mark. Rescue Me on in Hulu.
Oh, and what's that lead actor guy's name? He's so funny.
Dennis Leary.
He's so good.
Dennis
I
Leary.
love him.
Dennis Leary.
Yeah.
Like, if you want a
Yeah.
show to actually, for the most part, show what the real firehouse life is and all the struggles, Rescue Me is the one to go to.
Well, y'all are coming up on a busy time of year. July 4th, fireworks. Like,
Oh,
are
well,
y'all
we
both
don't
working
we
this
don't work
weekend or
July
y'all have to
4th.
work?
Nope. I'm on vacation. I'm definitely not working.
No. Oh, I'm gonna be
Vacay.
I'm gonna be sitting on my couch with my pups.
Okay, so question. Joe and I talked about this in the car. Okay, now that you've seen the F1 movie, like, where would you rank it with, like, F1 movie, Ford versus Ferrari, Rush, Ferrari, Enzo Ferrari, like some of like the classic motorsport films, like, like that are F1 based. I'm not talking about Days of Thunder.
I think Josh can better answer this one.
What were your thoughts,
Why?
Josh?
Do you think I watch more movies?
I feel like you've seen more F1, more motorsport movies than I have, and I think you have. And I mean, I have my opinion, but I think you would have better insight.
I hadn't really thought of that question. Let me.
You can think on it and come back. You can think on it and come back.
I think it would be.
Maybe with your time off, you could rewatch some even.
Yeah, I think
Courtney
honestly,
would
I'd
love
put
that.
it. I'd put it at 2 or 3 on
Yeah.
list on like a rank. I think maybe Rush would have it for me.
Me too.
I really like Rush. I think that's a great story, and it kind of captures
Yes.
like the grittiness of like old
Yes.
F1. And what a great the story of the rivalry between James Hunt and Niki Lauda. It's great. So I think I'd take Rush over it. But as far as
Same.
like camera work and cinematography and like the way that like the you know how you're never going to beat that viewpoint of driving in the car like that. Like you're just not. So
That lap where he was flying, I've got chills thinking about it right now. That lap where he is flying, I was like, this cinematography makes me so excited for the future of film. Like
So the
seeing
one
this
thing-
and seeing what's possible, I was like, I'm excited for the future of film.
I was really hoping with that lap when they started it, I was hoping that it was just going to be Sonny took off and like won the race by like margin, because I kind of thought that was like the quote in my head that was kept playing was the Ayrton Senna quote, kind of just like the feeling like he had a quote. I'd have to look it up to give you the exact. I don't remember the exact, but it was basically just like he was referencing Monaco, where he just felt like there was nothing else. It was just him in the car and the track,
Yeah.
and that was it. And like that feeling of like there is nothing else in the world that matters. He was like one with the car, and I just kind of felt like that was where we were going with it. And then he wrecked, and I was like, okay, well this is kind of maybe could have gone somewhere else with that. So
Okay, speaking of the Rex, let's talk about
Hang
them.
on, hang on.
Okay.
I think I think the Senna mini documentary on Netflix was better than this movie. Did you watch it?
Yeah,
yeah, I don't know
I just
about
think
better.
I think it's entirely different. I think the cinematography was completely different. I think they're better in different ways. I think Senna's was a better story, and I think they did a really great job of telling that story. I think the F1 movie cinematography beats out the Senna stuff every day for me.
Yeah, but I also think they also had a much bigger um, pool of money to go through
Oh,
than
100%. But also
the
think about
smaller.
the quality and like difference of what you're going to get in 8 episodes. I can't remember if it was 6 or 8 episodes versus
Yeah,
one
A
film.
feature length film, yeah.
Yeah, a feature length
yeah,
film.
that's
Totally
true.
different. But I loved Senna. I absolutely loved every bit of Senna.
Yeah, that was fantastic.
Okay,
Yeah, Senna was
but
great.
let's talk about those wrecks. The wrecking strategy. I don't know, Paul, was it you that sent it in the group chat about like the Max Verstappen looking at Sonny Hayes causing the wrecks and wondering how he's doing this within the cost cap? Like, that part of it was so unbelievable to me. Like, if a driver was ever intentionally causing wrecks as part of a tactic for a team strategy, like, oh, oops, did it again. Oh, they would ban it. Like it's like you'd be getting points against your license. You'd be getting your license revoked. Like that was the part of the movie for me that I was like, this is so unbelievable as a fan that I'm like, that's the part where I was like, this is too much. This is like one race, okay, but like past a second race, I was like, that's redonkulous.
But I think this is where you get into it. What lens do you want to watch this movie through?
Yeah.
Do you want to watch this movie through the lens of us who watch the sport, who talk about it, or do you want to watch it from just any Joe Schmo who just happened to walk into a Brad Pitt movie?
I mean, but like, it
Because
doesn't matter. Even
if
if you
you
know nothing about Formula One, if you know anything about a business in general, if one of your employees is intentionally wrecking and harming a multi-million dollar investment, no business would allow that to operate. No sports team would allow that to operate. No business would allow that to operate. So even an everyday human should have seen that and gone, okay, so that shit doesn't really happen.
yeah,
Well, I feel like to a
you're
certain
not.
extent, you have to kind of get past that, like right off the rip, because
Yeah, I did. I was like,
what business is gonna take a multi-million-dollar investment with pretty much the entirety of the business on the line and give the keys to a guy who hasn't competed in that industry in 30 years. I don't know if that's if you want to. There's certain things that you have to kind of just buy into to get into the movie, right? You have to accept like, okay, this is ridiculous that Brad Pitt is the driver, but let it happen. Let's just let it ride. Neat story. We'll move on.
I gotta admit,
So
I didn't even think about that. Brad Pitt was so
Yeah,
hot. I was like, it didn't even cross my mind. I was like, I've never found Brad Pitt to be so hot. Like in his younger days, like yeah, but I was just like, damn, Brad looks so good.
Also, the other question I had, did they ever talk about the point of the playing card on the pocket?
Yeah, they kind of
Did
referenced
they?
it. Yeah. So the whole deal was like, obviously, guys like a degenerate gambler, like had lost his
Yeah.
however much money. Like he was just racing to pretty much pay gambling debts is what it kind of made it seem like.
Oh,
Yeah.
So the whole thing with the cards was like he's a gambler, he's good with cards, likes cards, does cards, right? So the whole thing was he likes to take a card at random, put it in his pocket, And the assumption was that, like, at some point in time before, he had a certain card in his pocket, and that was, like, his best race. And so he's always chasing that drive. He's always chasing that feeling in the car.
Yeah, I didn't.
Oh, see,
And
that's
so
not where I went with it.
You're too smart for us,
so
Josh.
after the last race, when he took the card out of his pocket, he kind of looked at it and smirked and smiled and then moved on. So I think the assumption was that it was the same card that he's always chasing, like, whatever, 9 of clubs. He had 9 of clubs and he did really well or whatever, and then all of a sudden now he's just happened to have it. That's the way I took out of it. So
I didn't even catch that. That's too high level shit for me.
Yeah, but as we kind of move on from that, is there any last finishing thoughts on the movie?
Yes, one last thought, and my friend Apex.
You both
Andrea,
had one.
yeah,
Let's
I
do
got
it.
one after that.
Okay, my friend Apex Andrea, she does, her and MJ do the Laps Down podcast. Apex Andrea posted on her socials earlier that she was like, if there's one takeaway I have from this F1 movie, it's that I'm going to the 24 Hours of Daytona, like the Rolex 24, which, like, every year it happens, I have a work conference in Orlando, like those same days. It's like right after. So like this year I was watching the 24 Hours of Daytona on my iPad. I like got to the hotel, had a super early flight, was sitting there like in the lobby as all these like executives from companies are walking in. I'm like in my pajamas because my room's not ready, just like watching a car race. I was so excited because this year I was like, okay, next year I'm going to 24 Hours of Daytona and then I'll go to this conference. I found out this week they moved the conference next year.
Tons of bitches.
It's going to be in freaking Arizona next year. So I'm like, but I agreed. I'm like, anybody who had never watched any form of endurance racing before, just like we got you indoctrinated into the cult, Josh, 24 Hours of Daytona is absolutely amazing. They are not kidding when they say how hard that track is. Like, it is insane. So I'm like, if I can find any way to make it work, I too will be at the 24 Hours of Daytona in Florida next January.
That first shot of him going through that straight with the fireworks going, that was a pretty sweet way to kick it off.
That's real. That's how it happens.
Oh, like, really? Okay,
yes, they really do that. They really do that.
Yeah,
so
I really enjoyed that. That was pretty cool. Josh, what were your finishing thoughts on the movie?
So I was going to say first, now that we're on the WEC conversation, this is our bid. We need to have them make a WEC movie in the film style
of the
F1 movie.
Yes.
Have an endurance racing, whatever, if he wants to be IMSA or WEC, whoever wants to do it. Somebody needs to step up and just do like an F1 with cinematography, with the access to the cars, access to the track, access to the paddock.
Yes.
With all the access, have all the cinematography, have all the film set up. That would be cool. And you could do so many storylines. With 24 hours of racing, you could do so much. You could have all sorts of stuff going on. So that would be really neat to see. Hopefully some other series may take the hint and be like, oh, this is a really good way to kind of get some people in the door and watch this thing. So that'd be neat. My last point about the movie, I was going to come back to Paul's thoughts on the not having the drivers kind of more involved. After watching the last podium scene, and I noticed it while we watched it, and then plenty of people have broken it down since then and kind of zoomed in on certain people's faces. If you would think that Charles and George, right, are like your two more like camera savvy, whatever, drivers, right? Those are your two, right? George and Charles.
I know where you're going with this.
George.
Both of them looked ridiculous up on the podium. Like, they were confused. They were not really sure what they were supposed to be doing. The direction wasn't great. Like, I'm sure it was like they just raced a whole thing.
Right after Charles missed out on a podium, right?
Yeah.
They filmed that right after Charles just missed out on a podium at that race. And then he had to get on and film that scene after he just missed a podium.
Yep. Because Max didn't want to. Because Max wouldn't do it.
But what gave it away was just the face of George and Charles hitting it. They were just like hitting the champagne, like no enthusiasm at all.
Give a Lando style.
So I
just
think that
anything
with the drivers, I don't think you really want them to be featured too much with speaking lines and
if that's what it's gonna look like.
Yeah, too much facial expressions going on. I don't know that's necessarily what they wanted. I don't know. I think that would have taken away some. Even Toto at the end, like his lines seem kind of forced and awkward. Like they're just not
You
actors.
mean Toto?
Toto,
Toto.
Woof, they're just not
Once again,
actors.
it was just a plug and play that it completely missed the mark on my end, at least for me.
You know
Right.
who Brad said he thinks would be the best? Is Pierre Gasly. He said, out of all of them, he thinks Pierre would have a career in acting. I'm like, well, give that man a role in the next film.
Yeah. But yeah, overall, good film. I think it's going to do great things for the Formula One world. It's going to bring in more fans. It's going to bring in more American fans, which I think this sport really needs. Liberty Media needs, especially with
Yeah.
ESPN losing the rights as of 2026 and what's going to happen. So ultimately, it's a positive for the sport overall. I think you can nitpick it till your face turns blue in the face.
Yeah.
And much like Josh said at the beginning of this was never going to be an F1 documentary. This wasn't going to be that. It was going to be Hollywood, and you just have to be happy. The good news is, I think the movie industry has raised the bar when it comes to motorsports films, and I think the bar is now this. So if anyone who wants to ever make a movie about any motorsport, this is the bar you have to reach in cinematography and just everything. So overall, I love it. The sport is growing, so just enjoy it.
Yeah. Well, speaking of Liberty Media, I know that we all saw it. Like, Liberty Media bought MotoGP. So, if there's
Yep.
anything that we can forecast with the growth of another sport in motorsport, let's anticipate MotoGP is about to grow hella crazy fast. And I was talking with a girl on TikTok who she does MotoGP content coverage, and she's a content creator, and she gave me a show to watch to learn more about it. So I'll text that to you guys because I'm like,
Yeah,
let's
absolutely.
start
Yep.
learning early.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. All right, well, let's get into it. Sunday morning for us was Austrian Grand Prix. I almost said Silverstone. That's this weekend. Whew, that's that bullet. But the Austrian Grand Prix, I think we went into it with a lot of excitement. Um, Max went into it really angry because he started P7. But all right, Josh, what did you think of the race?
I thought the race was very exciting. I think last year as well was one of the better races we had. Um, I going back to even just qualifying, I was just Lando's qualifying lap was just ridiculous. It was off the chain, and it would be a remiss not to be able to mention that because he was what was it like half a second clear of everyone else. So
It's
it wasn't even
insane.
close. Yeah, it's ridiculous. So had to at least mention that because that's a ridiculous lap. Everybody should go watch the onboard because it's nuts. Um, a couple unfortunate deals throughout the race. Knocked out some fan favorites or big villains. Everybody loves to hate him. Um, it was unfortunate that it was Kimmy and Max because it would have been better for the content if it was George, and the two of them would have like started punching each other or some shit on track. Like it would have been way more fun.
Carnage!
It would have been more fun if the two of them were just fighting in the middle of Austria. But it was Kimmy, and who can be mad at the just graduated high school senior? Like, come on, it's like little brother. So of course Max is like understanding, and Max immediately went and started watching his team in the 24 hours of Spa. I don't think he really minded that he was out of the race because I don't. He didn't even. He said he didn't even watch the race. He had to go watch the highlights after. Like he was so uninterested after he was
Oh,
knocked
he
out.
didn't
So
care at all.
no, so
He
he
got out
didn't
of the
care.
car, talked to Kimmy, and said, "Done, I'm out. Let's go."
Yeah, very much going back to his yacht vibes. So um, he just could not care less. So that was fun. Other than that, I mean, you had Oscar gave her hell. Oscar really tried to close the gap with Lando. Almost took him out, which would have been great for Ferrari. Unfortunately for McLaren, but Ferrari would have reaped the benefits with a 1-2 there. But Lando held it together, had some very good stints, was able to, keep it out of Oscar's crosshairs for long enough, and had a little interference with the Alpine. So, maybe in a different world, Oscar wins that race, but Lando was able to hold on, and I think we probably will see that gap between Oscar and Lando tightening up over the next several weekends. So that's what I'm looking forward to coming forward. So what'd you all think of the race?
There it is.
Loved it. It was probably my favorite race this season. Like, and
Yeah.
not obviously, like being McLaren and Ferrari girl, I was super, super happy. I was a little disappointed. I don't feel like we even saw a Ferrari on camera all day, except that Lewis overtake on the first lap. Like, other than that, I don't feel like we saw them at all, and that was a bummer. But for me, just like even the midfield competition was so insane. And so, it like, there, we talk about the races where it's like exciting start, exciting finish, and then middle 60 laps, cut them the fuck out. And sorry, cut them out. And for me, I'm like, I was so excited to have a race where I was like on pins and needles almost the entire race. And I thought it was amazing. Um, I was obviously super bummed for Carlos right at the beginning, like him not being able to start the formation lap, and then he comes into the pits, and then his rear brakes are on fire. I was like, "You're kidding me!" And then when Albon retired the car, which I was like, I saw Albon potentially finishing top five. Like, I thought this was his race. So I was really, really bummed for Williams. I hate that. I think they've been in a bit of a funk. And so I'm really looking forward to Silverstone. This one's close to home for them. This is like they're super excited, taking it back to their roots. So this is a special race for them. And I think maybe this is where they can turn it around. I know we were texting about it, but that like issue with Colapinto, like it was like the Yuki Colapinto, and then Oscar like situation where like Yuki was up front, Colapinto was like chasing him down, Oscar's behind, like it was very messy and it was very stressful. And like, I know I say I like the stressful racing and the excitement, but I thought it was a little too messy and it could have ended Oscar's race. Like he went into the gravel. He is lucky he was able to rejoin with no harm. Stake, kick, F1, stake, Sauber, whatever the heck else, highlighter green. I mean, double points, Gabby Bortoletto's first points. I mean, he was like in fifth in FP1, so I was super excited. We didn't have a strong FP2. I was like, nah, but the cars looked good. I think we know that Nico Hulkenberg got the upgrades first, which was great. He seemed to have been moving along, doing really well. So I was beyond excited to see them double points finish. That was exciting. I was excited for Liam. I know Liam is Dennis the Menace of F1 to me, but I was excited to see him get points. I have wanted him to be successful with VCARB, him moving back home, working with Laurent. Laurent was super excited to have him. So I thought overall some really exciting stuff. It was so nice to see the Ferrari upgrades working, feeling dialed in. The only coverage Ferrari got was the strategy situation with Lewis, where Lewis was like, I don't need new tires. I want to stay out. I don't want to be coming in. And, they had him come in. Like, that's obviously a little disheartening. But to see that he's in a P4 finish, even when they're not listening to him, imagine if they would listen to him. I loved this race. Loved
What
every
a thought.
element of it, though.
Yeah.
What?
I said, what a thought. Imagine listening to a seven-time world champion.
I can't.
Just
An 8-time world champion. That is crazy. I did have a thought on Max, though, Josh. Part of me was wondering if Max was so okay with this incident, with that wreck ending his race. Like, Max doesn't DNF ever. If he DNFs, it's because there's a collision. And part of me was wondering if Max was kind of okay with this happening because of what it triggered in his contract clause. I don't see him leaving unless Daddy Stroll pays out that money. Toto ain't paying out that money. Maybe he will. I don't know. But part of me was wondering if Max was so okay with it because it now gives him options. He has the upper hand. He holds all the cards. So Max is a brilliant driver. He's incredibly talented, but he's also grown up in this business. And at the end of the day, he is a businessman too. So part of me was like, he's accepted the fate. It wasn't his fault. It is what it is. And now he has the entire upper hand because now his exit clause has been triggered. So that was my only thought on Max. Like, and I actually was bummed. I had Max winning the race. How cool would it have been for Max to win in Austria, after this season? I thought it would have been a really great story, but yeah, those were my thoughts on the race.
So, for those of you wondering what she's talking about the clause, it's come out in reports early this week that Max has a couple clauses in his contract where he can leave Red Bull if certain things happen, like if he's not top two or top three in the standings, this, that, and the other. So, yeah, possibly. There's been a lot of rumors of him talking to Aston, talking to Mercedes. Toto seems to be kind of hinting and flirting with the idea. So maybe this is his way of just exiting out the team.
I'm so nervous for the break after Silver. Like, Well, it could happen. Y'all, we're at that point in the season where shit goes haywire. And I'm so excited. I'm
Yeah, I think
nervous
there'll
and
be.
I'm excited.
I think there's going to be several moves.
Yeah, I do too.
And obviously, like I think with the Max situation, like I think you're right. I think that gives him all the bargaining chips, right? It gives him the hell if he and his dad have decided that they don't want Christian Horner to be the team principal anymore, that could give him the license to say, I'll leave if you guys don't find somebody else,
Right.
and maybe this puts all the eggs in his basket, and now Max has the ability to make what he wants. I'll just go somewhere else if you guys don't want to do what I want to do. So that's a very good point because it does trigger his exit clauses. So that's possible.
And listen, that whole Red Bull team has just been crumbling from the inside for a couple years now. I mean, the Checo interview last week talks about how since 2023, 2022, and certain people have been leaving, that team
Hmm.
just isn't there. And it just seems like they've just spiraled and they can't seem to stop it.
Well, they've lost
Which I
like their glue.
hate
Yeah.
because it's like there's so much talent, and Max is in the prime of his career. Like, I hate that the team is crumbling for him when he is in his prime. Like, imagine if none of that crap had ever happened with Horner, there wasn't any of that team drama. If things hadn't gotten so screwed up with Checo, and then, the Checo and the Liam and the Danny and the Yuki, and like it becomes this crazy mess. Like, I think the dominoes started to fall with the Hornygate. And I think if none of that had happened, I think we could be in a completely different position with Newey maybe not leaving, with the team staying intact, with Checo thriving and doing well, the team listening to their drivers. I don't know. It makes me bummed for Max because he's in the prime, and he's not going to want to do that for a ton. Maybe he will. He loves racing, but now he's got a kid of his own. Things could change for him now, and it could be like the dominoes fell the way they did right when he was at the height of his career, which he could choose to just take that and move it to another team and continue to pursue that.
But
I
he's
was
also shown
wondering.
interest in driving WEC and
Yeah.
other sports. So maybe he just does. I mean, ultimately, he's accomplished everything he set out to in Formula One.
Yeah.
There's nothing else for him to accomplish. He's a four-time world champion, three-time world champion, and Ferrari really needs to do a lot of soul searching in the next few weeks and months because if Max leaves, that team is barely a midfield team.
Y'all, what if in the craziest shakeup of events, Charles says, I must fly the nest. I'm sick of this. And then what if Max says, I'm going to Ferrari and we got a Max Lewis line? It would never happen.
I
But
don't
how
think Max.
crazy would it
I
be? I
don't
just
think.
got this crazy vision of being like, I'm going to
I
end my
don't.
career in red too.
I don't think Max would even that would even cross his mind. To be honest,
I know.
think that he wants a little bit more control in a team than Ferrari is ever going to give him.
Right.
Um,
But I
Max,
definitely
Because the
see
Red Bull
Charles.
brand to me is Max now. Red Bull brand
But
to me is
Oh
Max.
yeah,
Ferrari
not
is
for
Ferrari
sure.
no matter who drives for him.
Right.
But I definitely
Right.
can see Charles jumping ship to a Red Bull if Max leaves.
No,
I
Charles
don't think
is
he'd jump ship
Ferrari
for a
boy.
Red Bull. I think he would jump ship for a
For
Mercedes.
Mercedes. I could see that, but I really think that
I
Charles would
think
rather stay at Ferrari. I think Ferrari would have to Maranello would have to be damn near on fire.
Marinara!
Yeah, I know this was southern
Give me
coming
some
out.
Charles and some marinara.
That's my southern accent.
Hold on.
I think that
I gotta send y'all a video. Speaking of Charles and marinara, continue,
Go-
and I'm
go
gonna
ahead,
send you a
Josh,
video.
finish your
I
thought.
think that city would have to be on fire and the factory in ruins to give Charles the thought that he should leave. I think that he would rather
think.
stick it
Let
out.
me ask you this. Let me ask you this. What has he accomplished with Ferrari in the last
It
years?
doesn't matter what he's accomplished. It's the fact that he is a
But
Ferrari driver. That's all he's ever wanted. He's won
however,
Monaco. He won Monaco. He's come up very close. He got second in a drivers' championship. He's had several seconds in the constructors. I think that yes, and those are under eras where Red Bull and Mercedes were so dominant that no one else had a chance. Yes, it's second place. No, it's not first place. He's not winning championships. But he's as close as anyone named Max Verstappen or Lewis Hamilton has been in a very long time until this year.
but he's not winning anything right now.
Neither is the other 18 people on the grid. So I think that
I think Charles is starting to see the writing on the wall, and I don't think he can win with a Ferrari.
I think that with 26 coming up, no one is making massive changes unless they absolutely have to. I think,
Right.
especially with Ferrari being a constructor and having the ability to really create the car that is going to be good with a power unit available to them, as
I
opposed
think
to a
Ferrari
customer
needs to
team.
do some. I think Ferrari needs to do some drastic changes in order
I think Ferrari's
to.
going to do what they were doing and have always done. I don't think Ferrari's in the position where they want to do any soul searching. They had a very successful upgrade. I think that they're seeing this now as they're in 3-4. There was definitely a gap between McLaren and Ferrari, but there was a massive gap between Ferrari and the rest of the midfield. And so
Massive.
I think that
Yeah.
Ferrari is very happy to be in that position right now with the upgrades that they've had and how successful they've been this weekend. Now we're moving on to several other races that are a little bit more fit for that car, with a little bit cooler temperatures, where you might see them battle a little better. I think you've got Lewis, who's still struggling with his race engineer, but still getting third and fourth now. They're fine. I think Ferrari's very, very good at just tuning out the noise and doing what they're doing, and they have a plan in place, and I think that they're just going to stick to it regardless of what anybody says. I don't think that either of those drivers are looking to leave. I think they may wish things would change or be a little bit better for them in the moment, but I don't think that anybody's going to jump ship from Scarlet Red just because they're getting third place instead of second. I don't know.
No,
It's
I
just
agree.
I don't see it.
I think I see things a little bit different, and I think it's only human nature. And Josh, you know this more than anyone. It's human nature to wonder if the grass greener on the other side. And I think you know what I'm talking about.
Sure.
Um,
Secrets?
yeah,
Okay.
No,
but
that's no.
I
Y'all
think
gonna do a secret handshake on the screen too?
we'll
Damn.
talk we'll talk about it we'll talk about it outside. But I think Charles is only thinking if the grass greener on the other side. Have I reached the peak of what I can
Right.
do with this team? What could it be if I was possibly with a Mercedes or with a Red Bull or anyone else? And so this is what I mean. I think Ferrari needs to really figure out what they need to do to keep their drivers. I think you are ultimately right. Ferrari is just going to Ferrari because they will just, well, we've done this for decades and years and we're better. But I think something needs to give because it's only human nature to wonder what the other side of the
Yeah.
grass looks like.
Well, I think a really good start would be listening to the 8-time world champion on the radio saying their tires feel good and they can stay out.
It's just gut wrenching when you hear that radio communication and he's talking to him and he's like, "My tires are fine," and it's just silence. It's just
It's gut
silence.
wrenching.
I don't understand what
Well,
is
my
happening.
feeling is that there's probably more to that than just some radio communication. I would assume that obviously they look at the data from the tires from all the other teams as well. They're looking at degradation. They're looking at everything else. I don't wonder if they were seeing that and like, okay, Lewis, you're fine right now, but in 10 laps you're not going to be. And maybe that's where the communication breakdown is, where they're not saying, Lewis, here's why. This is what, and because that's what Bono would have done. Lewis,
Right.
you're good for now. In 10 laps, you're not going to be. We've had other teams fall off the cliff, and we don't want to lose position. Or either that, or they just purely did not want Lewis and Charles fighting, and they just wanted to keep them
Ultimately,
separate. I think that, and just
They don't want
go
to have
ahead.
a McLaren
They
situation
don't
on their
want to
hands.
have. Yes, they see that and they go, okay, that's a good points haul. The last thing we want to do is Lewis wanting to battle with Charles, and we knock both these cars out. I don't. It's one of the two of those things, I think.
ultimately, I think I have to piggyback what Josh said. It wouldn't have made a difference. They were still going to finish third and fourth. It was just a matter of who was third and who was fourth. I don't think Mercedes was going to catch them, and they were definitely not going to catch a McLaren. So I feel like it doesn't make a difference. But
Right.
I think he's so used to Bono explaining things to him and him being Lewis, feeling like he's got a part to say that he doesn't have anymore. I think it's just Ferrari is just this. Hey, this is what you jump. Oh, I tell you to jump. You just have to say how high. And I don't think Lewis is used to that. But if we can get back to the race in McLaren, I loved that McLaren let the two racers go for it. And I loved the radio communication between both their engineers, which was like, Lando, do this to win. Oscar, do this to win. And it seemed like even within the team, they were trying to figure out a way to get their side of the garage to go first. And I loved that, and it worked out good. Ultimately, we knew that the first pit stop was going to dramatically change everything. And that's exactly what happened. The first pit stop completely changed it. But for those first 10, 20 laps, I think that was racing at its finest, and I loved every minute of that.
I was so tense. We started watching when the races are early in the morning like that. We've started just watching the race up at the golf course because then we'll just like go and tee off. And I'm like on the patio pacing, and like the guy that works in the pro shop came out and he's like, "Mary, you okay?" And I'm like, "I'm unwell, Durs, don't talk to me," you know. But it's like it's become such a thing that's like there are a couple other friends that we have that are F1 fans that like to watch races too. So now it's like become a thing, and I've like did a whole logo on it. So I like did it for Silverstone. I made like a little logo for us to like all go watch there. It
Oh,
says it's
nice.
Pine Forest F1 Club.
Nice.
I
So
love
just
it.
like so it's just like a thing now. Everybody kind of knows like we're just gonna watch the races out on the patio and like hang out and then be able to go play golf after.
That's
So like
awesome.
we were out on the course and my friend Zach, who loves F1, we've gone with him several times, was like, I like pull out my little mic to do like my like 1 minute recap of the race, and Zach's like, right here, right now, and I was like, I gotta get it done. He was like, can I make a cameo? I was like, yeah, come on, man.
Yeah, but ultimately it was a fun race. I think Austria definitely always gives us fun races, and it's such a short track. Yeah, ultimately it was fun. I really loved McLaren fighting. I love that the Ferrari, that upgrade really seemed to catch on a
Yeah,
little bit. Even Lewis said it. Hey, at least we're not a minute behind them, which is always a
right.
plus. So they're slowly chipping away. I think as the summer gets hotter, Mercedes is really going to lose that pace because I don't think they can't do anything when the track gets hot.
Well,
And
but with the forecast coming up in Silverstone, it could be
correct,
completely
correct.
different, you
Yeah,
know?
sure, sure. That'll be different, but it'll be interesting to see how all that plays out. I was ultimately impressed with this weekend and how well it really kept you on the edge of your seat the entire time.
Uh,
Yep.
Before we close out Austria, let's take a quick second to talk about those F2 wrecks.
Yeah.
Gnarly.
Yeah, those are wild. Yeah.
Gnarly. And I was so bummed because it was like Arvid Lindblad had just driven for like Red Bull, or like he drove FP1, right?
Yes.
Or is
I
driving
believe
FP1.
so.
I can't remember. And then it was like, and then he was involved in one of those crashes. It wasn't at fault, but it was like, oh man, to have like such highs and such lows on the same weekend, like cars inverting, going on top. Was it you guys that sent the Top Gun?
Yeah, I did.
Or was it Joe?
Yeah, Josh did.
Yeah.
I
Like
was
I was
inverted.
like, oh my gosh, this is insane. And then like Aaron Dunn or Alex Dunn, who drove FP1 for McLaren and came in fourth in FP1. He then was he got a penalty for like a technical infraction. I was like, F2, I'm like, I want to commit to following F2 a little bit more closely. Number one, just to like know who's in the driver development and who's in the pipeline. But there seems to be so much more action in F2, and so I'm committing to watching a little bit more F2 after this weekend. Just some chaos.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I definitely am really bad at watching F2 and F3. I know Josh keeps up with it more than I do, but I definitely want to try to watch it some more and see what's going on
Yeah.
because, that's a pipeline to F1, so you got to know who these drivers are.
Okay, well, quick points recap before we go to Silverstone.
Can we just
Um,
forget about this? I don't want to do this anymore. This is a dumb segment,
I
and
wonder
not all
whose
my
idea this
Yeah.
was.
I want to go back
maybe
to
hear me
see.
out.
You were very excited when we started this.
Yeah, I'm gonna make a
Not
clip. I'm gonna edit a clip of an audio, and then we'll do this, and we'll show
not
Josh this
all
really
my ideas are
funny
good
old tumble
ideas.
face. Hey,
All right, go
you
for it.
you don't know if you don't try. Um,
This is true.
your attempts are just pathetic, though. But we
I'm
believe
just gonna wear my McLaren earplugs and forget about all this that happened.
your earplugs. Let's emphasize that your
Yes,
earplugs. They're
earplugs.
not headphones.
No, they're not headphones.
Okay, so after last week, we had Josh with five, Paul with four, and me with five. Josh's prediction was Oscar Lando George, so unfortunately, nobody in correct lock there. But his shocker prediction was Sauber double points, so he gets a point there. Um, Paul, you had predictions of Max, Oscar, Lando, so you do get a point for Oscar. So you finally have a point
Oh,
on the board for the first
moving
time
up
in
in the
three
world.
races. Yeah, first time in three races, you got a point on the board. But your shocker prediction was Williams double points, and if it was double DNF, then you would have got
You
it.
would have
So
had it.
you did get a point this
Yeah,
week. You
It
are
was double
done with your
something.
goose egg streak.
Done.
My prediction was Max, Lando, Oscar, and Hulkenberg points. So I didn't get any of my podium, but I did get a point for Hulkenberg. So technically, we just all stepped up a point. So now we are at Josh with 6, Paul with 5, and me with 6. So we're still right in there, Paul. You never
Slowly.
know.
All right, Josh, what are your predictions for? Hang on, before we do predictions, anything you want to talk about Silverstone, Josh? You're the historian expert on this one. What do we know about Silverstone?
Well, it's a great track layout.
It's great.
It's a really
It's
good. I
fun.
mean, it's one of my
Silverstone's
favorite.
great.
It's one of my favorites of the season. I really love Silverstone. I mean, I think it's actually probably one of the favorites of everyone on the grids. I mean, it's one. I've have not been personally, but I've heard it's a great place to go. Meredith obviously can attest to that. I think the drivers really love Silverstone. Even guys that had raced the previous track layout versus this one, I think there's still just as much love there. Really neat spot.
Always a lot of action too.
Yeah, always a lot of action. And I think the story of this weekend, honestly, is going to be the weather. Because the English weather does tend to be unpredictable and tends to give us a lot of rain. So
And they are
that's gonna
predicting a little bit
and
of
they're
rain this
predicting
weekend.
rain for qualifying in the race. So whether it be variable conditions or just a straight rain race, either way, it's going to be very exciting. It's built on an old airfield, so a lot of the long straights are old runways. So it's just great DRS zones, great braking zones, some really good chicanes in there. It's a
Yeah,
lot of
definitely.
fun. It's a fun one to watch. It's a great,
Yeah.
A, lo-
great
a lot of
layout.
a lot of overtaking. This isn't one of those tracks where you get into that DRS train and nobody
No.
does anything for 40 some laps. It's a 52 lap race, and I think from start to finish, it always gives you a little bit of excitement. And much like Josh said, with the England weather variable, you never know when you're going to get some rain, and so it's going to be a lot of fun. But let's do these predictions.
Okay, before we do
Oh, no,
predictions,
that's right. Yes. Tell us about your adventure to Silverstone.
y'all, I love Silverstone. I do.
When did
But
you
that
go?
weather, we went last summer. So
Okay.
we went to the triple header, but we were originally only going to the Barcelona Grand. We were only doing Barcelona and Austria. And then I was like, we are already over there. What are we doing? Like, it's the difference of flying home on a Friday versus flying home on a Monday. It's one more day of PTO. Let's just do it. It was amazing. Now, if y'all are like me and you like to be able to like travel when you go to a race, like that is one of the best places to do it because I have never in my life had a desire to go to London. Couldn't have cared less. Not a history person. Worst person in the world with geography and history. Loved it. Loved every bit of London. Would go back anytime. What I will say that, I know people stay out closer to the track and take the shuttles over. Big fan of staying in London. The hotels are so much cheaper. There's so much to do. So many more food options. You can walk everywhere, take the tube, take the buses. There's so much to do and see. Getting out to the track is so easy. You just book the bus. You show up to the train station. You go get on your bus and you go. Being out there though, because of that weather, we decided to go like 2 weeks before our trip. So it was like we just extended and bought the tickets. If you are planning to go to Silverstone thinking about it, because that weather changes so quick, layers, 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 ponchos, 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 and disposable ponchos. Emphasizing that because once that first storm moves through and then it blows out, and then the sun comes out and it's hot as hell, I guarantee you don't want to put back on a raincoat. Putting on a heavy, big raincoat that you have to carry around that when that sun comes out and you're in a tiny bleacher or sitting on a hill, like the disposable ponchos were my best friend because I was able to just like chunk that thing and have another one in my bag. It was amazing. Last year we went to a new experience. It's called The Garage. And it was out on the inner track on what used to be like a hangar area. And you walk in and there's a pavilion, a long pavilion, and it's like 30 vintage cars, vintage F1 cars, F40s, old Bentleys. I mean, just incredible collection of cars your whole way around. There's a massive covered pavilion with couches, tables, seating, massive screens that are showing the race, beverages. There were food trucks out there. So our tickets were, I think, $500 for race day. And and to be in that like enclosure, having that covered area when the rain came was amazing. But you get to see him come around a turn and down a long straight. I don't know the name of the turn, Sarah, but like if you're not going to do a grandstand, I know a lot of people are doing like Lando stand this year. That's going to be really exciting. But like highly recommend Silverstone. But because of the weather, I would not recommend a general admission experience unless you're ready to just like brave the storm. I had sneakers that I took on the trip that I was okay parting ways with. I was like, I took them with the intention that I would wear them for the trip and just leave them there. And leave them I did because they were so muddy after that day because we had 2 different rainstorms that moved through and we only went to race day there that weekend. But big fan. Flights to London are really cheap. So if you're considering an international race, the flights to London are really cheap. The bus out, a round trip was like $40. So big fan of it. Go. Food and drink was really affordable there too. So that's also, I think, like if you're like trying to travel on a budget, that really helped too. So big fan of it. The racing was incredible. I will say a lot more, usually after the race, just like the winner usually does a drive-by lap and they're all excited. All of the drivers drove by and like waved at the stands a little bit more. So I did feel like that was unique, and I think it plays into how much the drivers love being at Silverstone in general. So yeah, that's all I had to add.
It's definitely one of the tracks that's on my bucket list of F1 to do, and I mean that one in Suzuka, just the history behind them and everything to it. So thank you
With
for
how
all
the
that
calendar
information.
falls, genuinely, like if you can start to save and plan with how the calendar falls, Silverstone is usually always after Austria, and the flights from Austria to London were like $200.
Oh
So
yeah,
it's like
I've,
it's worth it. Like I'm a big fan of like skimp where you can, skimp and camp at Austria at Red Bull Ring. Do a package with camping where you're not paying, $200 a night for a hotel, and then go to London, 2 birds, 1 stone, and find ways to stretch your budget.
yeah, absolutely. But yeah, let's get into these predictions, Josh.
What you got, Josh?
I think even with the weather, I still think that McLaren's going to run this weekend. I think Lando is in the best position that he's had to get a win in his home track, and I think that with the extra, he's doing the Lando stand and just kind of all the coming off the momentum of this great race in Austria, I do think that Lando's going to win. I think it's going to be his first win at home, and I think it's going to be really nice and special for him. It'll be really cool. It's going to be fun to watch if he can do it. I'm going to take Oscar number 2. I think Oscar's going to be right there with him, but I think let's be honest, the strategy is going to favor Lando if he can manage to pull off anywhere close to Oscar because it's his home race, and I think Oscar would expect the same at his home race as well. So I'm taking Lando, Oscar, and then we'll take Charles. I think Ferrari's time for a podium with the upgrades.
Another podium.
So you're literally just repeating
Well,
this weekend's
yeah.
podium. I love it.
Well, no, I had George last weekend.
No, I'm saying like
Oh,
like this last weekend was Lando, Oscar, Charles.
Yes, I'm going to repeat the same one. I don't see
that.
much in the way of changing. Let's see, my shocker prediction. Not thought my
Do you want us to double back and?
yeah, come back to me on the shocker prediction because
Okay.
I want to
All right.
I want to come up with a
You
good
got
one that's
Paul.
not real generic.
All right, Meredith, you want to go or do you want me to go?
You can go. I
All right,
so
so
my notes.
because this is the last race, there's a couple week break between this and Spa. I'm just gonna Hail Mary this. You know what? I'm just gonna throw it out, and I say this podium is going to be a, a British podium.
Okay.
I got Lando in first, I got George in second, and I got Lewis in third. I think the F1 gods are gonna bless us. Something is
right.
going to go well. Much like last year, we didn't think Lewis was going to win. He somehow figured out a way to do it. So I think it's going to be a British podium
A British
with Lando. Yeah, Lando 1, George 2, Lewis 3. Shocker. I just think the V car is going to double points. I think both V cars are going to do well. I think Lawson is really starting to find his groove again, and I'm really happy for him. As much as I don't really like him, I'm happy for Lawson and Isaac. Who doesn't love Isaac? I just want to give that boy a hug, and he's just my buddy. So we're gonna rock it with the V car double points.
And also with that sick ass livery. Yeah.
Yes. Did
Yeah,
you see the
yeah,
video I just sent?
Yes,
Yes.
I love it.
Yeah. Meredith, what are your predictions?
I got to give it to my boy Lando. We know he does well. He's coming off a win. It's Lando's stand, home race. Like, there's going to be so much excitement. We know he does well when his self-confidence is really, really high. So I'm with you. I think he is primed for a victory. But Max loves Silverstone, and he has performed and delivered consistently well at Silverstone. We know he can battle from anywhere. And so I really feel like, especially after last weekend, Max is going to have something to prove, and he's going to want to come out and have a really strong race. So I've got Max in second, and then I've got Oscar in third. And he was the one I struggled with because I, too, Paul, was feeling a little bit of British blood and feeling like super excited for that. So I did ultimately go with Oscar, but I think my British boys are going to be right there. For my shocker prediction, I'm going to keep it going with we're going to have another kick Sauber in the points. I think I really want this to be true because I want them to have found something. Like, I'd love it if it was Gabby, but like, hey, if it's Nico, that's great too. So Sauber in the points.
Josh, what is your prediction? Your shocker?
Oh, I'm gonna hurt for saying this. Lance Stroll points.
Oh my God, I love it.
Listen, I thought you were crazy with the Sauber double points last week,
Hey,
so at this
look,
point,
And then look at you.
No,
at this point, you're just a freaking genius.
I think that.
All right,
yeah.
Lance, you think
Lance
Lance is going to
Stroll.
points?
Hey, it's a rain race. He's kind of been flying under the radar. He hasn't done a whole lot after his little injury or whatever we were doing. Let him.
Okay.
He's good. He's
Whatever
very good in
we
the
were
rain.
doing.
He's very good in the rain.
Yeah, he
He's
is.
used to-
He's Canadian. Rains a lot
yeah.
up there.
So I do think that if somebody's going to has a lot of experience driving in the rain and doing well, I just we'll do it. Unless he beaches himself on a gravel trap, we'll be okay.
Please don't do it on lap one.
I know,
Please
or the
do it when
formation
we
lap.
need like a yellow flag.
Right. But also, before I get to the big announcement that we have, IndyCar is back this weekend with the race at Mid Ohio. For those of you, that was last year that Pato won that race, if I'm not mistaken there. So hopefully we can see Pato do something at Mid Ohio. And this is a road track, right? It's definitely not an oval.
Yeah, and
No,
the girls
So
from Podium
it's
Pop podcast are going to be there and doing a lot of coverage. So, like, if y'all don't follow Podium Pop, they do a ton of IndyCar coverage, and they will be there. I was like this close. They're like, "Come, Meredith, come," and I was like, I cannot afford any more races. I wanted to go so bad, but they will be doing coverage all weekend there. So, if you're not following them, go follow them because they do great coverage of the races. So, super excited. But we're also hitting a big stretch of multiple IndyCar races, so I'm really pumped about that.
yeah. So, all right. As we kind of wrap this up and get to our big announcement, is there any last final thoughts that we want to do, Josh?
No, I'm good. I think we've covered it.
Hold on. I have a prop for our announcement. Hold, please. My table literally broke as we were
I saw that.
recording
Yeah,
this
I
episode,
see
so I've
this
been
is
holding it up for the
struggling
last
here.
few seconds. I have a prop for our announcement. Hold on.
Okay. Also, did I see what was that part in the F1 movie with Lance and Brad Pitt's character? Were they having a fight there?
I
Or
don't
did I?
know.
It was an Aston car, wasn't it? I think it was a Stroll car, and I think they pushed them off or something.
Oh, I don't. It probably was. Yes, I do think I remember I remember Crofty saying Lance Stroll's name. It's a look easy target.
But as we kind of wrap this up, Meredith, any last final thoughts before we get into the announcement?
Nope. Just breaking news.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, I can.
Hold on. I have an app ready for this.
Okay. Is it a drum roll app?
No, hold on. I gotta get the.
No,
Hold on.
wrong one. You are a grown ass child. I love it.
I'm glad you had that
All right,
saved on your
well,
phone.
this is I don't even want to know what else she's got saved on her phone after that.
It's all.
All right, so
racing.
the big announcement is that this year the Apex podcast will be at the grounds of Coda. We have bought our tickets. We are going to be there. We're going to be there all 3 days. We're going to be at the grandstand, taking in the sights, talking to people. So if you want to get a chance to meet us, talk to us, engage with us, the three of us are going to be there. And yeah,
And we
I bought
will
my
have
ticket.
stickers with our logo as well that we will be handing out. So we will post ahead of time where we will be, kind of like where we're going to post up and camp up each day. So if you want to come meet us, we'd love to meet you. I am so excited to have my boys Paul and Josh in Texas. Like, if you follow me on social media, you know Circuit of the Americas is my Disney World. Like, I love Coda so much. So to have these two guys come down, and it's even more special because Coda is like the 1 year anniversary of Paul and Josh starting this podcast. So it's
It
going to be
is.
an awesome, awesome time. We hope to see you all there.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and I
super
have a
excited.
special outfit picked out for race day. I
Oh, it's
can't wait to
special.
wear it.
It's real
It's
Yeah.
special.
special.
Yeah. All right.
Oh, I can't wait. It's gonna be a lot of fun. Like I we bought our tickets a couple days ago. I booked my flight. I am all set to go.
Yeah, I'm super excited. It'll be both. I think it's both our first Formula One races live in person. So
Yep.
I'm super stoked just to get the
It's
whole
the first
experience.
live F1
Yeah,
race.
yes, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm just excited to get the whole experience. I'm gonna be taking it in. Yeah, we'd love to meet you guys. Come hang out. Tell us we suck. Tell us we're great. Whatever you want to do. But we're just excited to be
Yep.
there and hanging out. So yeah.
I also, Josh, am selfishly so excited to meet Courtney.
Oh yeah, of course.
Like I love y'all, but like now I've become friends with your wife, and
Yep.
Paul. At some point, Emma's gonna have to meet me too. So I
Yes.
just it's. I'm just so excited. Like, this is what an incredible thing that, like, y'all started this podcast out of your love for racing, and, like, the internet brought us together. And, like, Coda will be our first time to meet in person, the three of us.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, I just think that says so much about F1 that, like, a motorsport could bring three people together, like, two firefighter guys from Tennessee and a girl from Texas, and now we have this community. It's so cool, so special.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so
Yeah.
nice.
Also, I don't know if Josh is going to come, but I'll be at the Nashville race for IndyCar at the end of August too. So that'll be my first Indy race that I get to go to. I think Josh is trying to figure out if he can make it.
Yeah, I may
But
yeah.
my brother and I are going to go to Indy. But yeah, this will be our very first F1 race we've ever attended.
Why do you think I'm thrifting so much right now? I talk about it all the time. Like, I thrift flip to pay for my races. So I'm like, I'm gonna thrift flip the crap out of the next 6 to 8 weeks and
Yeah.
see if I can make Nashville happen.
Nice.
Yeah, so
That'd
hopefully
be
you
fun.
can. If not, we will all be together for Coda. And I haven't been able to stop smiling since I bought my tickets. And yeah, my stuff is packed. My outfit is already picked out. It's gonna be freaking awesome.
Well, we're excited.
Yeah,
I'm
it's gonna
stoked.
be a great time.
Absolutely.
So with that, everyone, I hope everybody has a great rest of your week. If you are dealing with this heat, please stay cool, drink plenty of liquid, and don't be outside unless you have to. We will be back with you guys Sunday after the race in Silverstone. We're going to talk about all the race and what we thought. So have a great rest of your week. We will be talking to you guys real soon.
Bye, everyone.
See you guys.